If you're driving in the UK right now on a license that wasn't issued in this country, stop scrolling for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to tell you could decide whether you're still legally allowed to get behind the wheel next year. Thousands of foreign license holders across England, Scotland, and Wales are about to find out the hard way that the clock has been quietly running out on them, and most of them have no idea. Stick with me to the end of this video because I'm going to walk you through exactly where you stand, what triggers the cutoff, and what you need to do right now to protect your ability to drive. Let's start with the basics, because understanding where you fit in this system is the difference between being completely fine and losing your license without ever realizing you were at risk. The DVLA doesn't treat all foreign licenses the same way. There's a tiered system, and which tier you're in determines everything. How long you can drive, whether you need to take a test, and how much time you actually have before your right to drive simply expires. At the top of that system are drivers holding a license issued in the European Union or the European Economic Area, which includes countries like Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. If that's you, you're in the most comfortable position of any foreign license holder. You can keep driving on that license right up until you turn 70 as long as it stays valid. If you were already 67 or older when you became a UK resident, you get 3 years from your residency date instead. And here's the part a lot of people don't know. You are never required to exchange that license for a UK one. You can simply keep using it for as long as those conditions hold. Sounds simple, right? But there's a catch buried in here that catches people off guard constantly. If your EU or EEA license was originally obtained by exchanging a license from a non-EU country, the DVLA doesn't just look at what your card says on the front. They trace the history. If that original license came from a country with a 12-month rule, that 12-month rule still applies to you, no matter what your current EU card looks like. People who assume they're safe because they're holding a French or German license get blindsided by this every single year. Now let's talk about the next tier down, because this is where the real danger zone is for most foreign drivers in the UK. The DVLA has bilateral exchange agreements with a specific list of countries outside the EU and EEA. If your license comes from one of these designated countries, you can exchange it for a full UK license without sitting a single test, but only if you apply within 5 years of becoming a UK resident, and only if your original license hasn't expired. The current list includes places like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, South Africa, Switzerland, South Korea, Hong Kong, Gibraltar, the United Arab Emirates, Zimbabwe, and a handful of others, including Ukraine, Moldova, and several British territories. If your country is on that list, this is genuinely good news, but the 5-year window is hard. It is not a suggestion. Miss it, and you don't get a grace period. You get bumped into the bottom tier, the one where you have to sit the UK theory test and the practical driving test from scratch, just like a complete beginner. And that 12-month rule I mentioned a second ago is the part that ends driving privileges for more people than anything else on this list. If you're driving in Great Britain on a foreign license from a designated country, you generally have 12 months from the date you become a resident to either exchange it or keep driving on it before restrictions kick in. After that window closes, if you haven't exchanged it, you may no longer be permitted to drive on that foreign license at all. People move to the UK, get settled, get busy with work and life, and forget that this invisible deadline is ticking the entire time. Then one day they're stopped by police, or they go to renew car insurance, and they discover their foreign license quietly stopped being valid for UK driving months ago. That's not a future risk. That's happening to people right now. There are also country-specific traps that catch people who think they've done everything correctly. If you're exchanging a Japanese license, the DVLA will not accept it without an official Japanese translation attached to your application. Submit it without one, and your application gets rejected outright. If you're coming from the UAE, you need a license data verification letter from the UAE Ministry of Interior included with your paperwork, or the same thing happens. Ukrainian license holders get a more generous window, 36 months instead of the standard 12, but motorcycle licenses from Ukraine cannot be exchanged at all, full stop, meaning you'd have to sit the UK motorcycle test regardless of your experience back home. And if you're holding an Australian license, pay close attention here, because some Australian states don't indicate on the card whether you tested in a manual or an automatic vehicle. If that information is missing, the DVLA can restrict your new UK license to automatic vehicles only, even if you've been driving manual cars for 20 years, unless you can produce separate evidence proving you passed on a manual. Here's something else that trips people up badly. Once you exchange your foreign license for a UK one, your original license is surrendered permanently. It's gone. If there's any chance you'll go back to your home country and need to drive there, you need to think about getting a replacement license from your original issuing authority before you submit your UK application, because once that exchange happens, there's no getting that original document back. Now, on top of all of this tiered system, the broader UK driving landscape is shifting in ways that make this an even more important moment to get your paperwork sorted. The DVLA is in the middle of rolling out digital driving licenses through the gov.uk wallet, with a full rollout expected over the next year or so. Your physical card will still be valid during this transition, but the push toward digital means address changes, medical declarations, and entitlement records are increasingly expected to be managed online, and falling behind on updating your details, especially your address, is one of the quickest ways to end up with fines or enforcement problems that compound on top of an already shaky foreign license situation. If you've moved house and you're driving on a foreign or exchanged license, get that address updated. Don't let a paperwork technicality become the reason your driving record gets flagged. There's also a broader road safety push underway. The government has floated proposals like lowering the drink drive limit for most drivers, introducing mandatory eye tests for drivers over 70, and even discussion of devices that prevent a car from starting if a driver fails a breath test. Not all of these are locked in yet. Some are still proposals working their way through, but the direction is clear. Stricter enforcement, less tolerance for outdated paperwork, and a system that increasingly expects every driver, foreign or domestic, to have their documentation airtight. If you're a foreign license holder, you do not want to be the test case for how strictly these new measures get applied to people whose paperwork already has a question mark hanging over it. So what should you actually do with all of this? First, figure out exactly which tier you fall into. Is your license from the EU or EEA? Is it from one of the designated exchange countries? Or are you in the group that doesn't have an exchange agreement at all, meaning you'll eventually need to sit the UK theory and practical tests? Second, if you do qualify for a test-free exchange, do not wait. That 5-year window and that 12-month driving rule are not flexible, and missing them turns a simple paperwork exchange into a full driving test from scratch. Third, if your country has specific document requirements, like the Japanese translation or the UAE verification letter, get those documents prepared well before you submit anything, because incomplete applications get rejected, and that wastes the time you don't have to spare. And finally, keep your address and personal details updated with the DVLA, because an outdated record can create problems that have nothing to do with your license tier, but still put your ability to drive at risk. The bottom line is this: the UK doesn't suddenly strip foreign drivers of their licenses overnight without warning, but the system is built on deadlines that are easy to miss if you're not paying attention. And once you miss them, the consequences are real. You could go from driving freely to needing a full UK provisional license and a string of tests just because a date passed quietly while you were busy living your life. Don't let that be you. If this video helped clear up where you actually stand, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel, because I'm covering more of these UK driving and residency rules that genuinely affect people's day-to-day lives, and you do not want to miss the next update before it costs you something. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.